order, finally. And would everybody please rise? And I'll lead you in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Robert?
I'll do the serenity prayer if I can remember it. God grant me the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference, and that's all I can remember. Amen.
All right. Amen. Okay, roll call, please.
Director Arlene Schaefer. Director Michael Schaefer.
Here.
Director Arthur Perry.
Here.
Vice President Robert Uten.
Here.
President James Fairman.
Present.
Thank you.
Where's our little...
She's in conference with Mr. Davis.
Oh, I see. Okay. Do we have any announcements or late communications?
No, Mr. President.
Thank you. Public comments. I do have a card from
Thank you, President.
Mosier.
President
Please.
Fairman, members of the board, my name is Jim Mosier, and I had one non-agenda comment. If you recall, at your last study session, I asked about the solid waste diversion report, which, as you know, is not an actual measurement of how much is being diverted and how much is going to the landfill, but it's the number of pounds collected from the district multiplied by fixed numbers that are determined by what's called a characterization of the trash. The characterizations don't happen very often. Nabil mentioned the most recent one was in 2018, a bit over a year ago, and I did go back and look to the past reports, and I noticed the percentages changed at the end of the fiscal year. So starting in July of last year, the percentages were different than they had been in June and before for many years. But that change in percentages was not brought to your attention or explained. So I am suggesting that at a future study session, you might want to get the details of when that 2018 characterization was done, because that's the first one since you instituted the organics program, how that differed from the previous characterization. And I noticed monthly the numbers change very slightly, so I suspect that you have still a blend of two characterizations, one from Costa Mesa addresses and another from Newport Beach addresses. You might want to look at that. So I'm suggesting at a future study session you try to get a report on that and understand whether you think that is going to be characteristic in the future or if you need a new characterization at some time, when that might happen. And secondly, we have heard many times that diversion percentages are not really what counts now. It's per capita pounds per capita going to the landfill. And I asked if we knew what the contribution was here, and you got an answer that was kind of complicated. I wasn't asking for a complicated answer. Based on the diversion report, you have tons going to the landfill, and I was just wondering if we have an estimate of how many people are in the houses putting trash in the district carts. And if we know how many people and how many pounds are going to the landfill, I was just wondering what the ratio of those two numbers is. So if we have an estimate of what is how we are doing compared to the state standard. And I understand the cities have much bigger contributions that go towards that, but I think you would be interested in how many pounds per capita are actually based on that report and our estimate of our population going to the landfill. Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe we can address some of those issues and bring them back up at a later time. Judith, I can't read the oh, okay.
My name is Judith Gilo, and I live 469 East 18th Street, Costa Mesa. Thank you for hearing me. It is a bit intimidating standing alone before the board and the auspicious staff to speak no matter what the topic. I believe that most of the Costa Mesa public has heard that the rates will rise and have considered the rise a done deal, at least for the first year's rates. I'm glad that you are looking into, and I encourage you to look to find alternatives for pricing of the services that are provided. By considering the variables such as the number and size of the cans and the number and size of the people with the cans, their contents, and maybe all the people served, plus the frequency of pickups, weekly, maybe bi-weekly, every other week, once a month, the fees could be adjusted more fairly. I don't think just an overall raise in price, other than maybe it's necessary because you haven't had a rise or a raise in a long time. Anyway, such a process would be time-consuming. Would the data be provided by the coming census, perhaps, save on that, but would offer alternatives that would be more fair to the public than a flat rate for all residences. I believe that we should try to reuse, reduce, and recycle, etc., as at Orange Coast College. Perhaps that will slow the need for new land to fill. Perhaps CNR will break even with the rise in population and new compact housing developments. But please, don't tax me and others out of our homes. Thank you.
We don't want to do that, believe me.
I had a question. Hasn't it been about 8 years since we've ever done a rate increase?
15. 15 years.
How many?
15 years.
Oh, time flies when you're having fun. Okay.
Okay. Any other public comments?
I thought it was 8.
I'll entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
Move the consent calendar.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Adopt the warrant resolution number 5, CMSD, approving district warrant registers.
No, Mr. President, we're on public hearings, D1.
D1.
One.
Oh, that was part of the, yeah, I see.
No, we just approved the consent calendar.
Okay. Adopt ordinance, oh, wait,
And so now we're in 2.
yeah.
Ordinance 126.
It's, is it D, public hearings?
Yes, D1.
Adopt ordinance number 126 and resolutions 2019-919, or 919, and 2019-920 for new solid waste charges and assessment of solid waste and wastewater annual charges.
I'll move for approval of ordinance.
You need to open a public hearing. This is a public hearing.
This is a public hearing.
Yes, you need to open up the public hearing for comments. So this is the time to open up the public
Yeah.
hearing.
Okay.
So
Anybody from the public care to make a comment on the ordinance?
Yeah, thank you again, President Furman. My name is Jim Mosher. I have a procedural comment about this. This item, let me back up. Some districts send bills to the people they provide service to. So they get a bill in the mail, they write a check. This district chose sometime in the past to attach its charges to the property tax bill. That's what this hearing is about. The analysis on the first page indicates sometime in the past, it might have been in the distant past, the district chose to use a procedure that is in the Health and Safety Code, Section 5470, to do this attachment to the property tax bill, which is actually kind of a big thing, because when you put something on a property tax bill, that becomes a very important legal liability. It's kind of a lien against the property. It's a little bit different than getting a bill for a service in the mail. So there is a need for the public hearing, and there are some procedures attached to that. which involve that the announcement about it be published in the newspaper. Sometimes government regulations, you need to see more about form than substance, but there is a regulation that the hearing has to be published in the newspaper 2 times, 5 days apart. And we have the example of the announcement that the district published here. It's the last attachment to the item, and it mentions only the new trash rates. It does not mention that you're planning to attach a sewer fee to the property tax bill. And even the one for the, and I could have pointed this out sooner, but even the one for the trash item appears only to be published once, not the 2 times required by the code that you seem to have adopted. And so I'm just wondering if that's a problem and whether there is urgency about doing this tonight or if it should be properly advertised. I don't realistically think a lot of people are going to pay attention to the notices in the newspaper, but if that's part of the procedure, should we be doing that? And I noticed the Orange County Sanitation District does their hearing about this in August, so perhaps it doesn't actually have to be done tonight. I do not know. Thank you.
Colin, do you have a comment on it?
I do, actually, Mr. Mosher. We appreciate your comments on the agenda that you sent out last week. After I took a look at your comments, we went ahead and republished it in the newspaper, so it has been published twice. The 5-day rule says it has to be published at least 5 days apart, not exactly 5 days apart. So what you have to do is you have to have 2 publications, starting at least 14 days before, at least 5 days apart before the hearing. We went ahead and did that after we got Mr. Mosher's email, so I appreciate you straightening that out. As far as the wastewater charges, there is a requirement to publish the wastewater increase. It's because we're adopting or increasing a rate. We're not actually adopting or increasing the wastewater rate. We are not adopting or increasing. We're just essentially re-ratifying it for the county. The trash rate we are increasing.
Yeah.
That's why there was a different portion of the notice. So I think we're okay on the noticing aspect. I do want to say that Mr. Mosher's email was taken seriously and corrective action was taken once I received it, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other comments on that? Okay.
Didn't we have this before, before us when I wasn't here? I missed a meeting and we had the rates on the agenda.
Was that last month?
We just
Yeah.
discussed it, but this is the public hearing.
Yeah, okay, the difference, okay.
And I believe the last hearing was the Prop 218
Yeah.
protest hearing also. We have 2 tracks. One is the
Yeah.
Prop 218 hearing, which is which was a requirement put on by the voters. The other is the Health and Safety Code procedure that has been in the codes for a very long time, and that's how we actually get the charges put onto the tax roll. They're 2 separate procedures. We do both when we adopt or increase rates.
For the next 2 years, we're not anticipating a wastewater fee increase.
No, we're not. We're not.
The county assessor just requires us to re-ratify the fees every once in a while and send them another resolution.
Do we have any sense for how far in the future that would go? Our budget is just for 2 years, so that's
Right.
That's
All right,
all that
we-
we logically predict.
Right. We'll come back in the 3rd year and evaluate our what wastewater fund and determine if a rate increase is needed. And if we do, we'd have to do an engineer's report and a study, just like we did with the solid waste.
Yeah, we
rate.
just came off of a 5-year process that was Prop 218 noticed, and it was 2% per year.
Right. We did that back in 2013. Yes.
Any other comments?
Are we done with the public?
Yeah, we need to close the public hearing, and then we can direct some more questions to staff if you need to.
I'm going to close the public hearing and reopen the regular hearing.
I have a question, Jim, for staff, when you're ready.
Do we want to take action on this?
I
There's a
think
question.
there's a couple things
Questions
I'd like
first,
to bring
sir.
up before we take action on it.
Okay.
Colin, under Prop 218, there's a lot of parameters and a lot of regulations and things that we have to do. To my knowledge, we've followed every single one of those.
That's correct.
Including accepting what the public is allowed, or what the public is entitled to do in protesting the rate increase.
That's correct. In fact, because there's 2 separate tracks that we follow, we're actually double publishing. We're pretty much putting 2 layers of the same publication on, which is the second publication was more of a belt and suspenders approach. We had already published this multiple times for the first protest hearing. We did it because frankly, we got a comment, we had time to do something about it, and it was a very easy and cheap thing to do, to just take a belt and suspenders approach to it. But essentially, if you add the Prop 218 protest hearing last month to this to the notice we gave in this protest hearing, I believe the public has gotten probably at least 3, possibly 4 separate notices.
Which leads me to the fact that the public is entitled to oppose this, and if X amount, what is it, 2/3, if I'm not mistaken? 2/3 of it can be overturned by a 2/3 protest?
50% plus 1.
50% plus 1, okay, there was a new bill, but anyway. Can I ask the clerk how many protests we received?
We received 12.
We received 12 protests. Now granted, in most people's lives, what they pay for sewer and trash isn't the biggest thing. It's important, and like Jim said earlier, our intent is not to tax anybody under the, by these. But I think it's indicative of the public, only 12 people, and that the night we had the public hearing, what did we have, two or three people that actually got up and spoke. So to me, the public has been given the opportunity to look at this. We've given them plenty of notice. We've followed Prop 218 regulations. We've done our due diligence, correct?
Correct.
Okay. With that, I'll move the action and the rate and the increase.
I'll second it. That's ordinance 126.
There's 3 actions.
So yes, we just need to verify, there's 2 resolutions you're adopting an ordinance.
All at once? All in one?
That's fine, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the motion is to approve all 3 of the resolutions at once.
Okay. Any,
That's 126, 2019, 919, and 2019, 920. Is that correct?
Correct.
Resolutions, yes, and then ordinance number 126.
And I'll second that motion with those additions.
okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. General Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item E1 is adopt a resolution number 2019-921, adopting the biennial budget for fiscal years 2019-20 and 2020-21. Staff is available to answer any questions you may have.
Anyone have any questions for Mark or? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to adopt resolution 2019, 921. Do you want, is that for fiscal year 2019, 20 and 2020, 21?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I did have one comment. I'm in favor of the motion, but the capital improvement projects, we had Iowa Force Main replacement number 322, and I think that money is now later in the process. We have an emergency CIP process that is going to require some of that money to be diverted to that project.
I'll refer to find out.
We did, excuse me, we did use the money in the Iowa project for another project, and we moved the Iowa project to a future year. So
It's still included in the write-up.
Okay, we'll look into it.
You know, I'm from Iowa, and
We couldn't tell, but
maybe it's apparent. Well, my question is why was this, the real question was why was the Iowa Force Main replacement so important to be in the budget, and then it became unimportant enough, for the money to be moved? So maybe we can discuss that at some other time. But
Sure. I mean, we every year we evaluate our asset management system to determine, the age of our infrastructure. And I can't remember off the top of my head. Rob, do you know how old Iowa Pump Station Force Main is? It's I can't know off the top of my head, but
it's not, it's very short.
Yeah.
It's like 200 feet.
Yep.
We've never had a problem with it.
but the age is not getting up there, though, right?
Yes.
It's old.
It's definitely on the list.
Yeah.
And it is important, and we recognize that. It's also asbestos cement pipe. so we have to be very careful and follow those regs. But trying to remember what, Caitlin, do you remember where we moved the money to? We need a little extra.
Some emergency project, it's in your report. You know, let's talk about that maybe when we come to it, or not.
Okay,
It's in the CIP report.
all righty.
When we talk about the Iowa pump station, remind me, is it the one at Iowa and Geisler or the other one?
No, Iowa and Geisler.
The one by the school.
Yes.
Yes, that's Iowa. At the other end is
We
Geisler.
call that Geisler, don't we?
Right.
Even though it's on Iowa.
We have the same intersection in two places in
Yeah.
the city.
Yeah.
And we
Okay.
have pump station at each one.
And they're both about the same age, I would guess.
Yes, probably early 60s. I could look it up right
Probably
now.
early 60s. That's when that track was
That's
built.
when that track was built, yeah.
Bob, do you remember, are there only two ACP pipes?
Yes,
Or one's the Avamore and one's this one, or
not the Avamore,
one of those small ones?
19th.
Okay.
So we have both of those set to be replaced.
Just,
Okay, excuse me, just to clarify, we needed the money for the Canyon Pump Station project when we awarded it. We were short money, so we borrowed it from Iowa and moved Iowa back a year. And that's why we did.
yeah, and I probably approved that.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, let's move along. Any other comments
We never took a vote, Jim.
Oh, we
No, we're going to vote
on
Yes, we did.
E1?
On the budget.
on the budget period.
No, we did.
Vice President.
No, we didn't.
Vice President interjected a
No, you
comment. but
stopped
you
it.
were
I made the
calling
motion. I made the motion and
Okay.
Arlene seconded.
Arlene seconded.
Am I
Yeah.
right?
Right, you're right.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, CR&R Consumer Price Index Increase Request.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nabila Guzman's going to give the report, but before she does, with the permission of the board, I would like to defer this to item G1 and allow Mark Davis, our district treasurer, to give an oral report to the board regarding the financial review of CR&R and his findings.
Mark?
Thank you, Mr. President, board members. As part of this item, considering a request for a CPI increase with CR&R, one of the components in the contract was to allow for a review of their profit margin that you could use in consideration for your decision. We did contact CR&R to conduct the review, and they were very accommodating in providing information for us to take a look at. I did meet with CR&R on 2 different occasions. They shared opened up their accounting records so I could take a look at them. They responded to all of my questions that I had, provided all the information that I requested for, except for one item that they deemed to be confidential. And at the end of the day, I was satisfied that the profit margin I reviewed was reasonably calculated. The financial information is confidential, and I won't be discussing anything related to their finances or their profit margin at this time. With that, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Board?
Maybe a comment. We're being asked to make a decision on things that we don't have all the information on. I mean, your opinion that their profit is reasonable, I completely, I mean, I have complete faith in what you're telling me. But at the same time, I owe the public the fact that I want to base my decision on more than just an opinion from our finance manager. I want to see the numbers. But by contract, we're not allowed to see those numbers. Is that right?
Yes, the actual, and I may defer to Colin on this, the contract doesn't actually state that. However, in opening up their books, CR&R had indicated the information they're going to provide is confidential and that it cannot be shared with the public.
So basically, we're being asked to make a decision on taking public funds to give to our vendor based on an opinion and a request from the vendor. We're not being able to look at charts and graphs and numbers, and I'm having a hard time grappling with that.
Well, I think that's why we had Mark look at it and give us his opinion.
Okay.
That's what we have to base our decision on, his opinion. Is that correct, Mark? Basically.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
No.
Understand.
Well, another option is maybe we should hold it and find out a little more about it.
Well, we can't look at their records. Mark, that's what Mark has done, and he's assessing his opinion to us tonight. Is that correct, Mark?
Right, that's correct.
But your opinion is simply that their request, no, your opinion was that their profit margins were acceptable,
Is reasonably calculated.
reasonably calculated. Okay.
Correct.
Well, you know, the thing is, there's a certain level of commitment that I'm willing to make, but if the numbers are over that, you know, I'm going to adjust my thinking. I mean, and, you know, the numbers I've heard, I'm not sure that we don't need a little more attention to it and a little more study, personally.
You don't feel we don't need more
I
study?
think we
Oh,
do.
oh, okay, that was my opinion too. But I don't know if I have
I-
consensus of everybody.
Well, I know this isn't an easy thing to orchestrate with our hands tied behind our back, but, you know, we've got to come up with some kind of foundation to base our opinion on.
Well, that's where Mark looked at everything, and he's giving his opinion. I think it's a reasonable request.
Well, I don't think Mark had all the answers.
I think he had 99% of them.
Mark, you were committed to do an audit. I think that's what the contractual language. Was that the contractual language? You were going to do an audit of the CRNR's whatever.
The contract uses the term audit, but it's not used in the sense that we would envision an actual audit of being. It talks about auditing the revenue, the gross profit margin. Well, there's really no need to audit the revenue. We know what the revenue is because we pay them. That constitutes the revenue. So there's really no need to audit that. What the contract allows is to look at, for CRNR is required to open up their books and to share what their profit margin is on all of the operations of the district that they provide services for, and then for you as a board to be able to use that information to make your decision whether or not you want to grant a CPI increase.
But if you don't have all the information, how can you say that we should vote on it and that they don't want to share it?
No, let me clarify that. They did share everything except for one component of an expense item that would not impact whether their profit margin changed dramatically or significantly or not. It was an item that I asked for, but they declined to provide that information as it was, in their eyes, confidential and sensitive in nature. But had that item not been included or been excluded from their expenses, their profit margin would have increased, but not significantly.
If I can help, when we presented the revised contract to the board, the staff mentioned this too, that this is what we negotiated, that, you know, that if CNR wants to bring a CPI increase to you, they can do that. It's your full discretion, and CNR has agreed to allow us to look at their books. We both agreed, and we shared that with the board when we presented the contract to you, that we're not going to share this information with the public. And so the board knew that. So I don't know if Dean's allowing, if you really want to see it, maybe Dean's open to it, that you can meet them with Mark, and they can show you at their offices on your own time. It's maybe an option, but we cannot disclose anything publicly.
What I'm struggling with, Scott, and we pride ourselves on this transparency thing. So now we're saying we can't share these numbers with the public. Okay. I mean, I have a hard time with that. Does the public mean they can't be shared with me either?
Say that
In
again.
other words, the numbers that Mark was able to look at, are we allowed to see those?
I'm assuming they can, it's just, as long as you can't disclose that information to the public.
But we can't give that to the public.
Correct.
But then we have to make a decision based on what we see. And when the public says, how did you make your decision? I'm sorry, I can't tell you how I'm really struggling with that.
Well, that's why they elect you to, because they trust you in making that right decision. You saw the numbers and you believe in that what you saw, and you make your decision on that.
There are certain, I understand the struggle that's going on, but this struggle applies across industries. And in fact, the thing that we're navigating here is the California Public Records Act. Under the California Public Records Act, that applies to all POC agencies, not just sanitary districts. Trade secrets are confidential. They're confidential not because we want to keep information out of the public eye. We want to put as much in front of the public as possible. But the legislature decided that in the case of certain elements of information, the disadvantage created by making it public outweighs the public's need to know that specific information. Trade secrets happen to fall within that. That doesn't mean you don't get to see it. It just means for a very limited amount of information like trade secrets, police reports, medical information, there's an actual privacy need that the legislature balanced in conjunction with the public need to disclose. And in the trade secret aspect, they've said that companies are allowed to keep their trade secrets so that they keep their competitive edge. Otherwise, CR&R is going to be in a position where they have to release their actual profit margins, whereas the other waste haulers don't, and they can use that as a competitive advantage to underbid.
I completely agree with that wholeheartedly. I think it has to be done that way. Is it possible for us to meet as a body in closed session to look at those numbers?
It's not. There's no closed session exception for reviewing trade secret.
Could each one of us individually meet with Mark to go over those numbers?
I believe you can, as long as you do not discuss with Mark the opinions or statements of each other. In other words, Mark can't serve as a spoke to create a Brown Act meeting. It's got to literally be a one-on-one meeting where it's only your thoughts with Mark and no thoughts of any other board member.
Not a two-person. I mean, that doesn't violate the right. So it needs to be a one-on-one.
On 5 separate meetings with absolutely no cross-discussion of any opinion of any board member, and you can do that.
Scott, can you discuss the contract negotiations you had with this? This is what we're going back to, right? Can you tell us again what the contract discussion was with CR&R?
Well, again, if I remember correctly, we were negotiating with Dean, and he wanted, the CNR wants to add an increase, an automatic CPI increase, and I did not agree with that. And I said, but I think it's fair for CNR to ask an increase if they believe they deserve one, but it should be approved by the board. And the board should have that discretion to either approve their full request or approve half the request, or don't approve any of the requests, or whatever percentage you want to approve. You have that discretion. But we also want to, obtain information to make sure that if we're making a recommendation to approve a CPI, that we're confident that it's a just request. And by being confident, allowing us to see their books, which they have done. And so they have complied to with the contract.
When's the last CPI increase that we've had?
They've never had one since I've been here.
I mean, we have never given one. And that's at least 11 years or more.
Right. At least they took it over in 2006. So since they've never had a CPI increase, never requested one.
The issue is the CIP increase is based on Los Angeles, Orange, and Riverside counties. Mm-hmm. That is in the contract.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
And I personally don't see what auditing their books means.
Like Mark said, we want to know what their profit margin is. Now we can't tell you what that is, but it would be our opinion if their profit margin was, as Mark said, minimal, then a CPI increase, we would say a CPI would be justified. If what was the word you said? It was sufficient. That's Mark's opinion, and you need to take his opinion and make a decision.
In the staff report, and I'll direct this at you, although maybe I should be, in Nabila, you can listen to. You gave us 4 recommendations. We could either do 1, 2, 3, or 4, with the optimal being a 5.8 on all 3 components of the contract, right? Whereas the other side is no increase on any of the 3 components. Do we have the option of granting or not granting a CPI on the individual components? In other words, could we give it on the hauler fee but not on the processing fee? Can we give it, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's silent on that. I know I had discussion with Alan before he went on vacation. Does the board have discretion to approve a different CPI amount? Like if you want to go half, you can do that. But we didn't talk about, could you nitpick it? Could you do it for one section and not the other? We didn't talk about that. So I think that'd be some more discussion I'd have to have with Alan.
You think I'm nitpicking? That's just easy. For example, the hauler fee is the easiest one for me to grasp in terms of giving a CPI, because those are direct costs. I mean, there's no return for those. Whereas the processing fee, we have to pay a processing fee for them to recycle to make money off that. They make a considerable amount of money, I assume, on that recycling. But we're paying a fee for them to recycle. So I'm struggling with that one.
Well, there's a fee to process that. I mean, they remember they got to take it out of the waste stream, and they got to bail it. I mean, it costs money to do that.
But they get money for it. On the hauler fee, they're not getting any return.
Well,
But the markets vary. And
I
right
know,
now,
I
I know the markets.
No, I understand that, but I mean, I have trouble with us paying a fee for them to make money.
Well, they have to hire all of their people. They have to do the processing.
Yeah,
it's a
I get it.
reasonable amount.
I get it. I get it.
Remember that article that somebody brought to our attention last month, where a lot of companies are dumping the plastics back in the landfill because they can't make any money.
They're
on
not
it.
making any money on it. Yeah. And then the conversion technology of the organics, I know, we're so new at this, it's hard to say yes or no, or to discredit trying to give a fee for that. I get that one too. It's just 5.8 applies, that the request is 5.8 on each separate component.
Yes.
It's not on the total package.
right. And each of those 3 elements, yes.
Okay.
That's for 2 years. It's not 1 year. That's for 2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that part of it. I mean,
That's what
there's other things attached to it that
Yeah.
I question.
Yeah, I understand, Jim.
If you sat here and asked me, I couldn't tell you what the number is that they're proposing.
Well, they're proposing the 5.8 for 2 years.
Well, I know that, but I was under the impression that there was more in another account or something that they want to have access to.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, but
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
I'm not clear on 5.8 divided by 2 is
2.9.
that's tolerable.
Well, like I asked Tran at one of the last meetings, I said if you went half 2.9 and 2.9, that would be more money than the 5.8 for the 2 years. It would be cost us more money. Is that correct, Tran?
Can you pull up attachment A for us, please? On the report, attachment A, Caitlin and I broke down all of the 4 options and what the costs for each of them would be, each of the fiscal years. So when she pulls it up, I can explain it. Yes, please. So option 4 for the first 4 columns are fiscal year 1920. Option 4 would be no increase, and those would be our cost in bold for the hauler fee, the recycling disposal fee, and the organics disposal fee. Option 1, which is the 5.8 one-time increase, that's how much it would increase versus what the no increase would be. Option 1 in 1920 would be an increase of about 300,000. Option 2 is a split, 2.9. So in fiscal year 1920, you would be awarding CRNR a 2.9 increase. And again, going down the line, that's how much it would cost per fee. And option 3 would be a one-time increase. And the next 4 columns is fiscal year 2021. So again, option 4 would be a no increase, rates stay the same. Option 1, there's no increase because you guys gave them a 5.8 once. So those rates carry through fiscal year 2021. Option 2 gives them their 2.9%, their second 2.9% increase. And option 3, there would be no increase because you only gave them a one-time 3%. And there is no compounding on option 2. So it is a flat 2.9% and 2.9%. If there was compounding by year 2, we would be paying more than the 5.8%.
So that's a total of like $137,000. Is that correct? From 2,700,600 to 2.837,100. Is that just 100,037? Is that correct?
What, I'm sorry, what year?
From option 4 all the way to option 3, the total amount is 2,837,100.
But you have to compare, you have to compare it option by option, though.
So option 4 would be a no increase, and then you can compare option 4 with option 3. So if you guys award a 5.8 increase, it would be...
That's what I was doing, that's what I was doing.
Yeah, I got it.
So option 1, 5.8 increase, at the end of the fiscal year, we would see a over 300,000 increase in our overall charges. By fiscal year 2, we would see another 300,000 in charges, so it would be a total of over $600,000 if you guys award CRNR a 5.8 increase for the 2 years.
That's for all 3 programs combined.
That is for all three fees,
right.
yes.
So over a 2-year period, we're looking at an increase to them of about 300,000 a year if we give them the straight 5.8.
Yes,
And for all 3 programs.
yes.
Why, if we do option 1 and they get 5.8% this year, there should be no increase in the second year's budget.
That's correct. Is that correct?
That is correct. So that's why we would again see the same increase of 300,000.
Well, 300,000 total for the 2 years.
No, 6.
600,000 for the 2 years.
Caitlin, can you explain?
You just said that if we gave them a 3%, that they would only get it in the first year and not the second year? Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Yes.
That's not true, though, is it?
No, they only get an increase they only ask for, it's always 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
So there should be no increase in the second year's budget.
He wants to know why it increases.
Are we budgeting the
300,000.
whole thing in the first year? That's what Bob just said.
He wants to know why.
If we give them 5.8%
$1,000
this year,
increase in year 2, if they're not getting another.
They get
there should be
5.8
no
this year?
increase in the,
No increase the second year.
Explain
That's
it.
not how I understood it. If we give them 5.8 this year, don't they get another 5.8 the next
No.
year?
No.
It's just 5.8 spread over 2 years.
Yes.
So so the option 1 would be award CRNR a 5.8 increase on all rates in fiscal year 1920, and then the rates stay the same.
Okay.
And that's the same for option 3 with the 3%. We would give them a 3% increase in the first year, and then the rates carry through fiscal year 2021.
I apologize. I just now saw the one-time increase notation there. I didn't see that before, so I apologize.
That's okay.
If I may, if you look at option 1, fiscal year 1920, 5.8% increase one time. If you look over at the HOLA fee account, annual account, monthly account, rate, and annual cost, If you go across the monthly account for the option 1 column, going straight down, the rate is 10.3635. And then if you go over to the fiscal year 2021, option 1, same thing, go across to on the rate. It's the same rate.
Yeah.
But the increase, because it's a 2% increase in accounts. Does that help?
So even though the second year they don't get an increase in their rates, we are expecting to have an increase in the accounts we serve, and then the total disposal they'll be having. So we're expecting our tonnage to increase and our residential accounts to increase, which is why we would see another 300,000 in expenses.
But it has nothing to do with the rate increase. It has
No.
to do with tonnage and population increases.
Can I ask a question? Is this already penciled into the budget that we just approved?
The
This amount,
5.8%,
That's already
yes.
approved. I mean, that's penciled into our budget that we just
It was,
approved.
I had that same question. I thought we had talked about that last time we talked about the budget, that we had already tentatively put it in there, yeah.
So, if we give them option 1, it's 5.8%. This year, it's approximately 300,000. CR&R gets nothing in the second year. Staff has conservatively estimated that the tonnage and the population will go up, and that's where the second 300,000 that you were talking about comes from.
Yes.
So if there's no increase in tonnage and there's no increase in population, that 300,000
It goes away.
wouldn't be there. When you said them in the same sentence, it sounds like it's CR&R's increase that you're talking about, but it's different.
It wouldn't increase, but the 5.8 the first year will impact the rate for the second year. I mean, it's higher than.
Yeah.
Well, we have an option in third year, we can look at this again, right? Because this is just for a 2-year, first is a 2-year increase.
Per the contract, they're allowed to come every 2 years for a 2 future year increase.
And
So the
we-
next time CR&R would be eligible to submit a CPI increase request would be fiscal year 21-22.
And that's when we come back to the same situation.
If
And
they
then we
ask.
make it, if they ask for it, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I already know the answer.
They haven't had a CPI increase for 15-plus years, so it seems reasonable to me that this is a good request.
The last CPI increase we found was in fiscal year 2004-2005.
Yeah, 15 years. 16 years almost.
I wasn't on the board then.
Are there any other accounts that they're planning to hold us accountable for? I don't know, it could be repairs, or it could be just something out of right field that we're, I thought that I heard that, but maybe I'm dreaming. There's no other,
I don't think so.
okay. So what we see here is what we get.
I would recommend that, in a couple of years, we have a little different graph that makes it easier to comprehend, I think, because this graph, it's harder for me to comprehend, but without the discussion.
What was the CPI for Riverside, LA, and for the benchmark? Do you remember what the CPI was?
It's an attachment 1. Their CPI request is the second attachment on the report,
Yeah.
and it shows a breakdown by year.
Did it? God, I'm not reading very well.
There you go.
I scrolled down all this thing. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Do I hear a motion?
No comment, Mr. Mosier?
Oh, there you are.
I did not put in a request to speak about this because I am not one of your trash customers, but I'm with Director Mike Schaefer about the transparency issue. I'm looking at the analysis here, since I'm not a trash customer, I have not studied the CR&R contract, but the analysis says the contract language stipulates the district has the right to audit the hauler's revenue, to check the hauler's profit margin before the board of directors makes a decision. I have heard, as I think you have heard, Mark has said that their profit margin is reasonably calculated. I did not hear him actually say it's a reasonable profit margin, whatever reasonable is in this business, which I don't know. And as to the district council's comment about this, yes, there is a Public Records Act request, and it allows certain business information to be kept confidential, but there, as far as I know, and I would be astounded if there was, there's nothing in California law that prohibits a company from revealing anything they want about their operation, including their profit margin. So I think it would be important to know what the contract says. If they made a promise to let you know what the profit margin is, then they are, I mean, the contract is allowing them to do that, and the contract, the fact that they could have kept the information confidential doesn't mean that the contract can't abrogate that. So I am, like Director Schaefer, struggling with the concept of this when it says you're supposed to consider the profit margin and you have no idea what it is.
Anyone else have any comments?
Do we need to make a motion, or what's this? I don't see that listed.
Yes, I need a motion of which, there's several options for you to consider tonight, so we need a motion of which one, what do you want to do? So
I'll try it out. I'll make a motion to accept the 5.8 option as an increase.
Over 2 years?
Over 2 years.
Yeah. Any second?
I'll second that.
Any comments?
I'm not going to support it. I'm still struggling with this, and I'm having a really hard time, and I understand that a business needs to have increases and the cost of business is going. I completely understand. I'm a businessman myself. I understand that. But I'm really struggling with not being able to know what the numbers are, you know, not having a chance to really dig in with Mark. The processing fee thing really bothers me. I just don't understand. We opted years ago to give them all the recyclable revenues because of the commodity thing, like Art said, and I agree. I think we should be doing that. I just don't understand why we should absorb the fee that it costs to process it, and so I'm not going to support the motion.
I'll call for the question.
Well, I am going to support the motion. I think the way, if it reads the way you described it tonight, it seems fair and equitable to me. I mean, they haven't gotten an increase in
15 or 16
11 years. I mean, it's pretty frugal. So I'm going to support the motion.
I'll call for the question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Mike Schaefer declining. Okay.
Mr. President, may I make a comment?
Yeah.
Dean Ruffridge with CR&R. Thank you very much. I appreciate the support. I wasn't called to answer any questions, but I feel the need to make a couple of comments, and I don't mean to get anybody upset, but I remember the negotiation process with your general manager. It wasn't easy to go through this, and as you all know, it took some time, and one of the things your general manager was adamant about was having the ability to audit our books. We have 54 franchises in Southern California, and this is the only franchise that allows us to take a look at our books by profit center. If we were a public company, you would not be able to. You could take a look at the annual report from Waste Management Republic, and you'll notice that they have a return anywhere from 14 to 25%, and I will guarantee you we're not even close to that. We're much lower than that. And I think Scott, Mr. Carroll will agree that this was one of the last things we finally got through on the negotiations because it was just not done. The other thing that I want you to, I think you understood what was going on, but We haven't had an increase since 2004. And in 2004, the landfill fees were $22 a ton. And as you know, about half of your tonnage goes to the landfill. Landfill now is $35 a ton. It's almost twice as much. We've never asked to be reimbursed for the past. This CPI is for the past 2 years. It's not for the next 2 years. As landfill increases, we're going to be in the rears for 2 years before you consider even another CPI, which is 2 years from tonight. So we're always in the rears as your vendor. And, you know, there's a value to that, to you, and especially to the ratepayer. But we accepted that. We signed the contract. In a number of my contracts, I can recoup all this. I can't here. We won't. We've been a partner for many, many years and want to continue to be your partner. And I think the last thing I wanted to say is there's a lot of questions out there. The Los Angeles Times, the Orange County Reporter, talked about recycling revenues. We have not asked you as a general manager or this board for an extraordinary increase. We haven't. We have in a number of cities. Most all of our Riverside and San Bernardino cities have given us an increase because they know that we're upside down in recyclables. Plastics, we can't even get rid of. We're paying $30 to $40 a ton to ship plastics to Vietnam. And when we signed your contract, we were making close to $80 or $90 or $100 a ton. So we're that far upside down, $150 a ton. Cardboard, when we signed this contract, we were selling for $310 a ton. Today we sold cardboard for $50 a ton, and it's costing that for us to bale it. We would just assume, we would be better off if taking everything to the landfill today at $35 a ton. Co-mingled recycling, we're paying $95 a ton to get rid of it. And before we were making money on it. If Mark had the opportunity to audit our books from year to year for the last 3 or 4 years, I think he would have a different expression on his face, asking, how can a business do this? We've chosen, CR&R does not landfill recyclables. We have a environmental conscious. We will not landfill recyclables, and we guarantee you that we will not landfill recyclables. So we appreciate the support tonight. We have our union contracts have gone up every year, as you know, from 2004, and our drivers are, you know, they're getting a 5 to 7 to 8% increase each year. So you can imagine the labor alone, not only the drivers, but the processors, the people at the landfill, the truck drivers that take stuff out to Paris, and so forth and so forth. So thank you for your support, and we appreciate being your partner, and hope we're here for several more years. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Just one other comment. You know, also part of our contract is all the new programs that we have.
Yeah.
That doesn't cost us anything. That's part of the contract.
True.
We have a lot of great programs that are in effect right now. Wouldn't you agree, Scott?
Yes, definitely.
No.
Okay. Item 3, approve auditor engagement letter for fiscal 2018.
I'm going to turn, Mr. President, I'm going to turn this over to Caitlin Turan, our finance manager.
Good evening, Mr. President and Board of Directors. The fiscal year 2018-19 is coming to an end. In the preparation of the fiscal year-end audit, the auditor, Tiemann Ramirez and Smith firm have issued an auditor engagement letter disclosing their responsibility under the United States generally accepted auditing standards and the government auditing standards and the state controller's minimum audit requirements for the California special districts. The audit is scheduled to begin on October 7, 2019, and the report will be issued at the end of the calendar year. Staff is recommending the Board of Directors to approve and file the report.
I have a question. Is that the $9,500 fee? Is that the normal fee?
That's a really special deal that we contract with them. This is their second year. They're actually taking a loss in this contract.
I'll move for approval.
We keep doing a business when people are taking a loss. We're going to be in trouble.
I'll second.
So this is our second year with him.
With this auditor, yes.
What's the max number of years you can go?
5 years.
5 years?
The contract is for 3 years and 2-year extend if we want to, extension if we want to.
The previous auditor we had for the full 5, didn't we? You
Yeah.
remember?
Four.
we did.
Four.
Oh, they bailed out on you on the last
Yeah,
year.
because it was about $9,000, $10,000, and
they were
they're like,
losing
yeah.
money, yeah.
Okay,
Did you get them both?
it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 4, consider contribution program
I'll take care of it.
application for concerts in the park.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. This is, we've become very standard now. We approve this applications every year for the past, I think, 7 or 8 years, and at the $2,500 mark. So the Costa Mesa Foundation, again, is requesting a $2,500 sponsorship for concerts in the park, where we'll have booths every Tuesday in July, giving out some of our great stuff to the community and encouraging people to participate and help us diverting waste from the landfills, and also doing their part to making sure that nothing goes down the drains other than the 3 Ps. So,
Move.
You know, I'm going to move that we approve it because this is probably the biggest bang
Yeah.
we get out of all the things we do.
Yeah.
There are more people that go to those concerts in
know
the
it.
park. I think we really get a big.
I'll second it. It's really a packed place, yeah, and it's good advertising for us.
yes.
Is this the same amount we approved the last couple years?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I probably voted no, but
I'm sure you did.
it is a valuable asset for us.
Sure.
It's been moved and seconded. Any more comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 5, consider approving agreement with DEC Environmental for GIS CMMS support services.
Thank you, Mr. President. So since 2009, EEC Environmental, they developed our GIS and our Geographical Information System and our computerized maintenance management system, and they've been maintaining it ever since. The Fifth Amendment was about ready to expire, and so we were to go into a Sixth Amendment, so we said, well, let's just start a new contract all over with them. And according to our code, our district code, we can waive bidding procedures because of their highly specialized and technical services that they're providing the board, such as GIS and CMMS. It's high technical stuff that really will train people who need to maintain. In the agreement before you, they are doing additional services for us. One is that they're going to create an online scheduling system for construction inspection. So contractors could schedule inspection by going online and making the scheduling happen. They're also going to add on to our computerized maintenance management system a desktop application designed to track warehouse transaction at the yard, so they can barcode supplies and keep track of those supplies, and when the supplies run low, then we know when to purchase those new supplies. And then finally, they're going to enhance our customer service requests by allowing citizens to input collected information from our mobile app, GovDelivery, and incorporate that in our GIS CMS system.
Can you say that again?
So they're gonna allow to incorporate data from our mobile app, GovDelivery, and incorporate it in our GIS CMMS system. It'll track citizens' input and create service requests to facilitate management and reporting of citizens' input. So it's another tool to enhance our customer service to the public. So the cost for this is for fiscal year 2019 and 20, it'll be $79,000, and then the following year, 2020-21, it'll be $60,000. So we're recommending approval of the contract.
I move for approval.
I just have a question. I just have a question about the app. Do our customers know how to get the app already?
Yes, we advertise it all the time in our newsletter. It's easily downloaded on, if you have an Android or iPhone, just go to Google Store and you can easily download it, yes.
Do you know how many people have taken the app, or is there any way to know?
We do, but we just don't know off the top of the head, so.
I'm just for curiosity.
1,600?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's growing, it's growing, we keep advertising.
Okay. I'll second the motion.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, Project 321, Indus Sewer Main Replacement. Approving contract administration and inspection services with Robin Hamers and Associates.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is just really for your information. I've already approved the contract administration and inspection services with Rob's firm, because later tonight you will be considering awarding a contract for this project. I just want to let you know that I did approve the contract administration and inspection services with Rob Hamers an amount of $25,360, and that is less than 10% of the construction cost, which is typically the industry standard we look for to keep contract administration inspections under 10%. And Rob's proposal does that, so I approved his proposal and just given this information as an FYI. So no actions needed.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Item 7, Special Districts Risk Management Authority 2019 Board of Directors election.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This is where you need to decide who you're going to select as the next board members on SDRMA. I think in your attachments there's some candidates, so you need to decide which ones you want to vote for, and then do we do it, or does the board submit? Board president submits, and then you make a decision, and board president will make that. We'll cast the ballot on behalf of CMSD, and we'll submit that to SDRMA. So we need direction who you want to cast your vote for.
I mean, I don't know these people, but you do, don't you? Can you help us with a recommendation?
Yeah, first of all, I would highly recommend the two incumbents be reelected, Sandy Raffleson and Bob Swan. Both of them have done an excellent job on the board. Sandy's currently vice president of the board, and Bob is the secretary of the board. So those for the three, those two definitely.
Do you have contact with the other three at all?
Well, first of all, I'll say Mr. Hamlin, the last guy in the ballot. If you read his candidate statement, he said nothing. It just said he wants to be on our board, and he's applied several times, and he says the same thing every time. See above. I have nothing to say. So my recommendation would be for Patrick K. O'Rourke as the third candidate.
Do you know him at all?
No, but in reading his resume, he's probably got more qualifications than Ms. Claypool. It's interesting to me is I think I come from the biggest district on that board. I mean, when you look at our board members, most of the board members are from these small, very remote districts, and they're the only ones who seem to want to be on that board. O'Rourke has more qualifications than Claypool. I think he's been doing it for a lot longer, so his credentials seem better to me.
I would take Director Schaefer's recommendations for these three.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is our ballot.
I'll second it.
Do we need to take action on that?
Yeah, so it'd be Swan, O'Rourke, and Raffleson.
Okay. Been moved, and do I hear a second?
Yes.
Yeah, the second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Do you take care of that, Nalani?
It's right here, I think. Consider revising Costa Mesa Sand District's Operations Code, Section 301060, time of regular meetings.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we've had some discussion on this item. So we're trying to seek some direction from the board. If you want to change the time of your regular board meeting, you have on your staff report some conflicts you need to consider when you want to reschedule your meeting. So we're seeking direction from the board tonight.
I'm going to make a motion because I think we talked about this. I'll make the motion just to get it open for discussion. But I would move that the board officially revise the Operations Code Section 3.01.060 to move the date and time of the regular meeting of this board to the fourth Tuesday of each month at 4:30 p.m.
Fourth Tuesday.
I'll second that.
And I think, Art,
I mean, I'm pretty flexible with any date, no matter what day it is. I have a potential conflict, but I usually can
At what
resolve it.
time?
4:30.
Does that conflict with any other meetings on that list? Because I know Jim is coming from, going to his 5th meeting today on a Thursday.
I know, Thursdays, and like headquarters is closed tomorrow. And it would be, I mean, to have staff stick around late on a Thursday when they're gonna be, I don't think it's fair to staff.
And when would this take effect? It's got to
That's
be
my
final.
next-
I was just telling us in the line, so if this is the direction you want, we would come back with you an adopted ordinance, and then we have to publish that ordinance in the newspaper, and then it goes in effect, I think, a week after it's published, right? 30 days, so 30 days. So we're looking at least another 60 days before we can probably implement this new.
So the September meeting?
Yeah.
September, October. I think that's a reasonable request. Did anybody in the audience have a comment?
Anybody? Mr. Mosier?
I will not be coming to any of your future board meetings then, because regular board meetings, still could come to study sessions, because the Newport Beach City Council meets on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month, and they often have a study session at 4 in the afternoon, sometimes 3, and the regular meeting is at 7, so they kind of meet continuously from usually around 4 o'clock. And if you use the first or third Tuesdays, you would have the same problem with the Costa Mesa City Council. So if you pick any Tuesday, you're going to have a conflict with some of your constituents with council meetings. Thank you.
You say 4:30?
We have a motion. Did we get a second on that?
Bob seconded.
Bob seconded.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. If for some reason that doesn't work out, we can always change it back.
Oh, yeah. We've done that in the past, so.
Yeah. Consider that's it. Debriefing of general manager's attendance to the 2019 International City Management Conference in China.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So, as you know, I am a member of the International City County Management Association, located in Washington, D.C. That's an organization that advances professional local government through leadership, management, innovation, and ethics. It's an organization that helps local governments in the U.S. create sustainable, livable, and resilient communities by researching and sharing leading management strategies and practices. And then outside the U.S., ICMA provides peer-to-peer technical assistance, training, and resource to assist municipalities in developing and decentralizing countries to develop local capacity and promote good governance. They do work with over 70 countries, and one of those countries is China. In 2011, the ICMA China Center was established as a partnership between ICMA and the China University of Political Science and Law. One of the goals and the objectives of the center is to establish cooperative relationship between ICMA and institutions and organizations in China to facilitate training, research, information sharing, conferences, and exchange. So on June 9th through 10th, 2019, the city of Zhengdao, which is located on the coast of the Yellow Sea in the Xibai district of China, had an international city management conference that focused on city governance, innovation, and quality improvement. ICMA graciously asked me to join them and other city leaders in the United States, Europe, and Canada to go to this conference to share information. For me, it was about the waste management, and so I'm really happy to share with you a PowerPoint slide of my experience in China. So it started on Thursday, June 6th. I left LAX about 3 p.m. Had a 12-hour flight to Beijing. And Beijing's about 15 hours ahead of us, so by the time I got there, it was 6 p.m. their time on Friday. Then I had to take a domestic flight from Beijing to Qingdao, which is located about 419 miles south of Beijing on the Yellow Sea. It's a port city, a tourist city. It's also headquarters of the Chinese Navy. So by the time I got to my hotel, it was around 11 o'clock at night, 11 on a Friday. So it was a pretty long day traveling. So a little about Zhengdao. This is on Signal Hill. You'll notice a lot of red rooftops in the city. And this is from Germans' architectures, because Germany occupied this city in the earliest 20th century, from 1898 to 1914. So you see a lot of German influence in the city. In fact, the biggest influence in Qingdao is this, believe it or not, is Qingdao. When Germans first got to the city, that was one of the first things they had was a brewery. And now
You didn't happen to partake in any of that? You just
I
took a
can't
picture of it?
disclose that. I really should not disclose that. But this is there's now one of the largest breweries in China, and so yeah. So this is one of the German influence. After World War I, the Japanese, which was allies with the English, kicked the Germans out. Japan, during their conquering years, they invaded China, occupied Qingdao until the end of World War II. And what I thought was fascinating is that you can still see a lot of German influence, but you don't see a lot of Japanese influence, and that's probably because they didn't treat the Chinese there very well. And so you don't see a lot of Japanese influence in the city, but definitely a lot of German influence. What I thought was fascinating is this city was one of the cleanest cities I've ever been to. I didn't see a cigarette butt anywhere. And a lot of it is because they had the people in these orange suits, men and women, all over the cities just using sweepers, sweeping stuff up all day. That's all they did. It was amazing. It's just, I'd never seen a city that clean. It was something else.
Yeah,
So Saturday night was our welcoming dinner. We had dinner with Qingdao city officials along with university officials and then our group. And let me tell you, when they host a dinner and you're the guest, they make sure you do not go hungry. They fed us. Let me tell you, that food just kept on coming, and I didn't know when it was going to stop. Yeah, but it was good. It was good food. So this is at the end. Some of the officials to the left, to my right. His name is Sun Wei. He's the Deputy Director General of Qingdao Urban Administration Bureau. And then to the right, to my left, is Gao Bao, member of the Standing Committee, CPC, Xibai District Committee, Director of General Offices. So this was Saturday night, had a lovely dinner. Then on Sunday morning, we toured some facilities, and the Chinese are really big on gathering data. They love performance measurement and gathering data, and they love showing off. This was almost like a war room we had here. So they had this big screen here, this screen here, then there was another screen over here, which is a huge screen showing us maps, and they were very proud of their maps and how they are tracking some of their asset managements, like their gas lines. And so then I asked, well, where's your sewer system? Do you track your sewer systems? And they kind of looked at me embarrassing and said, well, we don't know where they are. So they're still a little behind when it comes to sewers, trash, and water. But it was very impressive, all the data collection. This is the group we were at, and at the building, this is the Xibai District building. It's like a regional planning building with a lot of high-tech stuff. We went in there. So on the trash side, if you think about China about 35 years ago, China was very poor back then, right? And so they didn't generate a lot of trash. Well, now they're very prosperous. A lot of Chinese are prospering, and so you see them driving a lot of nice cars. There's nice shopping malls. They got buying power. So, and as a result, they're generating a lot of trash. And so the Chinese government does not have a good handle on how to deal with that. So the central government told all the large cities that they had to divert 1/3 of their trash by 2020. And this is what they're doing on the commercial side, where you'll see the regular blue can, and this is for household waste. This is business, so you can throw your cell phone in there, your lights, batteries. Then you have your trash. So this is on the business side, and then on the residential side, you had these long these tin cans, and inside there's a liner. They had to pull out and empty. I think one of the reasons why they're having issues with recycling, because you can see here's a recycling bin, but it says garbage. So that's a little miscommunication there. But so they had about 30 of these trash cans lined up to service this building. So they all live in high rises in China, right? No one owns land. They all live in high rises. And so they had to bring their trash down, and this huge row of trash cans was very labor intensive, for not only for the resident, but also for the government officials. One of the things I noticed when in the House of Hazardous Waste is I asked, well, what do you do with sharps? How do you dispose of sharps? And they had no clue what I was talking about, so I had to pull up a sharps container and show them how we do it. And so I showed that we put our sharps in there so no one gets prick, and so they thought that was very, very helpful. And then this was kind of cool. I thought this was maybe a good idea for anti-scavenging and multifamilies. So how this works is that a resident gets a card, and they swipe it here, and these lids will open up, and then you can put your recyclables in. That'll be a great way to prevent scavenging. And then the card kind of tracks the kind of data, how many times it's being used. I thought that was quite interesting. And then this was interesting. This right here, I'm with one of my colleagues. This is Bob Cowell. He's the city manager of Roanoke, Virginia. And we're looking at a bunch of pictures here. What I'm really noticing is that they had a green cart. It was like a 64-gallon green cart, and it was filled to the brim with cooking grease. So I thought that was kind of weird, odd. So I've seen a cooking grease in a green cart. So then we had a roundtable discussion with Chinese officials. While they were talking Chinese, I had an earpiece in my ear, and I can hear they were interpreting Chinese to English and vice versa. When I was speaking English, they would interpret Chinese. And this is when they really acknowledged the challenges they're having in recycling, that they can't get residents to recycle, and they don't know what to do. They're thinking, should we pass laws? Should we do more community output? Should we go to the schools? What should we do? And so they're challenging. They're being challenged on that. And I remember reading a story in China, and one about the recycling. And one resident said, "Well, why should we recycle if we don't even have a sewer system?" Makes sense. Why should we recycle if we don't even have a sewer system? Makes sense, right? So they're saying, they don't see the point of it. So they're struggling with this. One thing I mentioned here is, if you're going to go talk, I talk about our education program, like our newsletter. The stuff we do with schools, like the battery recycling, the free lunch programs, and I remind the Chinese officials that, hey, make it fun. If you make it fun for the kids, they'll learn. What I also learned is that they don't like using landfills because of the odor it creates. They like burning their trash. And so there was a Chinese woman in here, you can't see her. She was a professor at the university, and she was really challenging the officials, which I was caught off guard. And so were they. They were really caught off guard because she was saying, well, how come if you believe recycling is good for the environment, then why are you burning the trash? Aren't you killing, you're defeating the purpose, aren't you? And the Chinese officials say, well, our technology is better than it used to be. It's kind of take my word for it. They really couldn't back it up, but they said it's better. So that was interesting how she was challenging them on how they burn their trash. That's just me talking to them. So this was Monday morning. This was where I did my presentation. About 250, 300 officials from the city, from the Shibai district, also from the university. And let me tell you, when Chinese officials, when they put on a show, they go first class. I mean, they have lights and cameras, all that stuff. I thought it was at a TV show. So there we are, going international. That's kind of cool. So
that's neat.
And so then I am bowing for them before I give my presentation. And so I gave a presentation about special districts in California. Also the facts about Costa Mesa Sanitary District, and yeah, it's pretty hard to see here, but I had to convert their metrics, our metrics, and their metrics. So miles had to go to kilometers, tons had to go to liters. So I had to change that up. That was kind of a little bit challenging for me. But I talked about our program and how all the regulations are coming down in California, and we're ahead of the ball game with our system, our two-cart system, and using the latest technology. And then there you are. Showed you guys off to them. So.
Did you have an interpreter the whole time?
Well, I couldn't hear what he was saying, but they had an earpiece. So when I'm speaking, someone's speaking in there, so they're interpreting, translating from English to Chinese, and vice versa for me too when I'm sitting down.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are you finished with our link first?
Yes, yeah.
Did they have a lot of smog? I mean,
not in Qingdao because it's a port city, so I thought the quality there was pretty good. In Beijing was a little different. I mean, it was definitely hot and muggy, but I didn't feel like it was the air quality was. I remember the air quality here in Los Angeles, 25 years ago, when your eyes burn and your lungs burn when you're inhaling. I didn't get that when I was in Beijing. Didn't get that. It was definitely hazy, but I didn't feel the smog. I really didn't. And it could have been because it was early. From what I was told, later in the summer months, it gets really hot, very smoggy. So they said we came at a really good time there.
I have one other question.
Yes.
Okay. At those homes you showed us with the red roofs, how do they handle their trash? Do they have trash cans at the homes?
I don't know. They didn't do that. The homes, those red roofs, those might have been government buildings. They could have been businesses. I don't know. We didn't see that. What I saw were where they took us was this facility, these homes. Yeah. That's all I saw.
Condos, huh?
Yeah.
It's good for the condos. I'm just curious.
Well, and that's how they live on there. They all live in high rises. There's no single-family homes.
Condos, they don't own them. The government owns them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So this was Monday. In the afternoon, we flew back to Beijing, and then on Tuesday we went to the United Nations building on Tuesday, and then we had a roundtable discussion. And this was where we heard the trash practices in Denmark, and this was fascinating in Denmark. So in Denmark, landfills are illegal in Denmark. They use incinerators like they do in China. They have 25 incinerators in Denmark, but before this, they allow the smoke to go out in the atmosphere. They actually clean the smoke. So what's actually being emitted in the atmosphere is steam. And they use this as multi-purpose. This actually right here is a little ski lodge. So this is snow and trees, and they can actually ski down here. I don't know where they get up. Maybe it's on the other side of the building, but supposedly it's a multi-purpose incinerator.
They ski on the trash?
Yeah, they ski on top of here. That's supposedly. So that's what they said.
They're smart people.
So, and this is kind of neat too. So they barcode all their trash carts. And so when the driver comes up to the cart, he'll look in the cans, and if it's contaminated, he'll just drive off. And then the resident will come out and say, well, wait a minute, you didn't pick up my cart. And they said, yes, I did, because they scanned it, and they pull up their GPS. They said, yes, I was here at this time, and it was contaminated. And guess what? Now the resident has to take the trash to, they have to dump it. They won't come back and empty it. Yeah, exactly. They hold them accountable.
Should have seen this before you negotiated the contract.
Exactly. They do have in Denmark drop-off sites, recycling drop-off sites. They have drop-off sites for bulky items, household hazardous waste, and this is a big line for that, one of those drop-off sites. So it was quite interesting.
Do they have a program where they pick up large items?
No, you have to take it there.
Take-
You have to
everybody
take it
has to
there.
take it there.
Yeah, drop it off.
Did they also say that it's free to the residents?
That I don't know.
I think they pay through their taxes for all those services like they do in.
You know, I asked how much it cost, or how much it cost to operate, how much it cost to construct and operate an incinerator, and he didn't know. He couldn't get that information to me because I was curious how much that would
Their
cost.
tax rate is like 65%, I think, or something like that.
Pretty high. So this is one of the Chinese officials. She's a professor at the university. She was talking about performance measurements, and I shared with her our performance measurement program, and because she just used a ton of data. It was a little overwhelming, I thought, and I kind of showed her, here's how we try to keep it simple. And so it was just us with, I just kind of like this picture with the United Nations flag and the Chinese flag. So after this, we're done. We had some free time to travel. This is us traveling. This is Tiananmen Square. This was a week after the 30th anniversary of the massacre. So there was 30 years ago, there was 100,000 people here, and then the tanks started rolling in. We still don't know to this day how many was killed. These three young ladies, they were the best. They're students at the university. They're studying to get their master's in public administration, public policies. Their instructor is the executive director to the ICMA Center in China, so that's why they were helping us out. And you can't see it, but this is Lily, this is Luja, this is May. On Lily's hat, it says freedom. So, and every once in a while I'll see some kids giving the peace sign. So it was very fascinating. So there's a little rebellious going on in China, but it's not enough to concern the government. But I thought that was very fascinating.
You kind of look like Mao a little bit.
I do not. I'm in better shape than he is. In better shape. So I bring the Los Angeles Rams T-shirt. Bob Cowell, he's from St. Louis, and he goes, you had to wear that shirt, didn't you? So this is us at the Forbidden City. We couldn't get in, it was closed, but this is our group. So this person right here, this is David Johnstone. He's the past president of ICMA, and he's a retired city manager from Candiac, Canada. Wow. This is Norton Bonaparte, a city manager from Sanford, not Stanford, but Sanford, Florida. This is Karen Pincos, president of ICMA and the city manager of El Cerritos, up in nearby the Bay Area. This is Bob Cowell, the city manager for Roanoke, Virginia. This is Berna, and I'm not going to pronounce her last name. It's Turkish, and I just don't want to, I'll murder her last name. But she's the program manager for ICMA China Center. This is Natasha Hampton. She's the assistant city manager of the city of Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And this is Ib Rasmussen. He's the CFO, CIO for Faxe Municipality in Denmark. So this is our group.
Yeah, which one looks like the tourist?
Yeah, I had to wear my. Hey, I'll be comfortable. All right, I want to be comfortable. I want to wear shorts.
I appreciate that.
What about your transportation? Did they have transportation?
They did all of it.
Wherever you wanted to go?
Yeah, didn't have to worry about a thing. Those three young ladies, they took care of us. They did everything for us.
You had no internet, you had no,
Not at Beijing. I had it at Qingdao. I had internet, but not at Beijing.
really?
Yeah.
They say there's no internet.
Yeah, it was tough. Yeah, Beijing was tough. Yeah. So this is one of this is on the corner of Forbidden Cities. It was beautiful architecture. So we walked around the city.
Were you close?
Hey, look at that. Portable restrooms. Even Chinese have them.
Oh my gosh.
So I thought you'd get a kick out of that. Yeah.
I bet the neighbors didn't get a say in whether they got put there or not either.
Did you go in one?
No, I did not. No, we were kind of in a hurry. But yeah, that was at Tiananmen Square, and so yeah, so the Chinese
Were
believe in
you
them.
close to where they were rioting? And
Yeah, we were actually in the square where they were writing. Well, I mean, in Hong Kong, that was recently. That was in Hong Kong.
Far away.
Yeah, that was near us. No. And then this is then that night we had dinner with the university officials. This is the vice president of China University of Political Science and Law. And his name is Zhang, and I don't want to pronounce his last name. I can't do it, but he's the vice president. Didn't speak any English, so I had to, when we talked, we had an interpreter translating for us. So that was very nice.
You know what's going to happen? He's going to take that bag, and there'll be 10 million of them on eBay now.
Yeah.
We hope so.
Maybe.
I was going to say that would be great, wouldn't it?
So Wednesday, we did have a chance to go to the Great Wall, and this was probably the best investment the Chinese government ever made, was having these cable rails take you up to the top. Best thing they ever did. It was great. So
Did you have to pay for that? Did they take care of that for us?
see, I think I had to pay for the cable car, but as far as the admissions, they paid for it.
Okay.
So this is Li Jiami on the wall. We actually walked all the way down here. That's where we are. And if you can see, there's stairs here and there's no stairs. Wow. And you can see how everyone's hanging on the rails. It's that steep. It is so steep. If you don't hang on those rails, you're going to fall on your face. It's amazing how steep those are. It's just an amazing piece of architecture. And they did this, 3,000 years ago? It's just amazing how they did this.
Are there vendors everywhere?
Not many. I didn't see many.
When I was there, there were vendors.
I didn't see.
Take cable cars to get. Do they take to the top? Is that
Yeah, they took us to the top. Yeah, yeah. And this is my last picture. So this is on top of this. Me, Natasha, Luja, and Lily, and that's it. And I do want to mention to the public that not one penny of the district's money was spent on this trip. It was fully funded by the university and by the city of Qingdao. They were very gracious hosts. It was a wonderful trip, and I thank the board for allowing me to go here. I think it was a good opportunity to share the Costa Mesa Sanitary District internationally, and got a lot of good stuff, made some really lifelong friends, and it was one of the best trips I ever went to. So thank you for allowing me to go there, and I was glad to represent the district.
Yeah, that's great.
I think we ought to do a lot more of this, especially for the directors, Maybe they could sneak us in there
I think we should
somewhere.
go to China and really see if they're not accepting recyclables or not.
Do you think they would listen to some of your suggestions and put them into?
They were taking pictures. When I had the AD facility up, they were taking pictures, and they were very intrigued about the Sharps containers. Definitely, they thought that was intriguing.
Do they have a problem with those or not?
I don't think. Yeah, they don't have. I don't know if they have a problem people putting them in there, but maybe they just haven't come across it yet. But they didn't think about it.
I wonder if they even have a drug problem like
That's
that.
what I'm saying.
Well, the people have not drug, but medical reasons. Maybe they have
I
medicals.
understand it, but
Yeah. And one thing I have to admit, I did not see one homeless homeless person. I take that back. I did see one in Qingdao, and he was disabled and he was begging, but that was it. Didn't see any homeless there at all.
When you were in Beijing or even in Qingdao, did you ever feel like you were being watched
Not at
or
all. Nope, not at all.
the government didn't seem like?
Not at all. No. In fact, when I was talking to our Chinese colleagues, we're commenting. It's too bad that our two federal governments can't get along. There's tensions, but as far as the local level, we get along just fine. We had no problem sharing information and trying to help each other out.
That's great. That's a great experience for you.
That's
Yeah,
outstanding.
Do they have another one coming up in a few
I think they go every year.
different locations or?
I think so. Yeah.
People to people, they go quite often.
Excuse me.
Not necessarily to China every year. They go to Russia and they go all over the world.
Yeah.
Eisenhower started that program.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
That was
Thank
good.
you. You're welcome.
Okay.
Interesting.
Jim, did you have anything? Okay. Engineers report. Receive and file the monthly capital CIP status report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm available to answer questions.
Anybody have a question for Rob? Okay. And declaration of conflict of interest.
Thank you. 272 Esther is a single-family home being built by the owner, John Weatherwax, and he's a hands-on person, and the Water District makes submittal required for meter changes, and the Sanitary District wants a sewer plan, so he was referred to me. I prepared the plans, so the sewer plan is being checked by our alternate district engineer per our normal standards.
There was a Weatherwax that graduated from Costa Mesa in 1962, Claude Weatherwax. Remember him? You weren't there, probably
No.
62.
No.
I
I know a John Weatherwax, but it's not this guy.
Yeah, I know a Weatherwax, but I think it's a different name. Okay, it's weird.
Okay, so we need to take action on
No, this is just for your information.
item 321, Indus Sewer Main Replacement. Bid opening and award of the contract in the amount of $267,040.
Yes, thank you. This is a sewer that is, as a matter of fact, we went over this prior at a study session. However, this is a sewer main that is under the patios of a building, and our sewer is being compromised. So we designed the sewer to be moved away from the building. And the job was bid. We had bid opening, and we're recommending award of the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible contractor, and that is Gentry General Engineering. As you saw in the staff report, there was a protest, and the protest was rejected, and that's also being recommended in your board recommendation section of the report. That is explained in the analysis section if you have any questions on that. We're fortunate that we are getting to this sewer here because it's getting worse over time. We've been monitoring it, so if we didn't do anything, eventually it would collapse. And here we are, ready to do it, so we're recommending the action shown in the staff report.
Second.
Discussion?
Just real quick on that protest letter, they were saying that they weren't qualified as a soils engineer or something, right?
They interpreted soils engineering as being a subcontractor to the prime contractor, and that their price was over 0.5% of the bid. So, and they weren't listed as a subcontractor. And Alan did research and determined that a soils engineer is not a subcontractor. They're a professional, like I am. We're registered under a different section in the code. So the soils engineer did not have to be listed. So the bid stood, and it was rejected.
Did you get any feedback back from them on the rejection, or did they just
They
watch
said,
it?
yes, they said, thank you. We look forward to bidding on future projects.
That's good.
So Scott and Alan played a big part in that.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And we'll take that as the items, all the items listed under the staff recommendation. That's what that approval was for.
Okay, so item 4, do we?
What we've determined is that Scott's done a wonderful job in a force main rehabilitation program to improve the reliability and lessen the risk of an SSO from force mains. Fantastic job. We're on top of them. We're so far ahead that once we replace these last two, I don't think we need to do anything for a while. So Scott put a project to do evaluation of force mains. Well, guess what? That's a smart project to do. However, based on this emergency work we just did, which are finishing this coming week, we believe that the sewer siphons could possibly be in poor shape because we have not televised them while we cleaned them. So we decided that a sewer siphon evaluation program would be a little bit smarter than the force main evaluation. So we will still do the force main evaluation, but we will just postpone that. We're paying a lot of money for the emergency work on the Bristol siphon, so we're recommending that we do a condition assessment or evaluation of the sewer siphons. So we're recommending moving some money and creating the project, and I've provided a proposal to Scott to undertake that project.
Okay, any questions?
Will that proposal be coming back to us, or are you just going to?
The proposal to create the project is the action that's recommended in the staff report. Once you approve the creation of the project, Scott will direct staff and me to appropriately perform the project.
Do you have any estimated cost?
Yes, we have the estimated design phase cost is, I believe it's $19,000, and it is to have, step one would be to put out a little specification for contractors to clean and CCTV all the siphons. Once we get those results, we will analyze the results, and we will determine what repairs need to be made, determine the cost of that, create the projects, and then blend them into the capital improvement program, if necessary, so that we stop from getting into any other emergency situations with our siphons. So we didn't believe they were in as poor shape as the one we found. So kind of little alarm here went off, and we need to prioritize this project.
I'll make a motion to transfer the funds to take care of this.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, directors.
Thank you. Finance, or Treasurer's Report, financial review of CR&R. Well, we don't need to do that anymore.
Exactly. We've already discussed that one. The second item this evening is your statement of investment policy for the upcoming fiscal year. The government code allows for the adoption of investment policy. It's not required. We do feel it's a good practice to continue to do that each year. Also, the government code requires or indicates that the responsibility for placing investments rests with the legislative body, with the board, and you do have the ability to be able to delegate that function to a treasurer. If you decide to do that, the delegation only lasts for a one-year period of time. So before you tonight is adoption of the investment policy for the 1920 fiscal year, as well as delegating the investment function to the treasurer. We have attached both a red line version and a clean version of the investment policy so you can see what the changes were to the policy. They're very minor. There were no changes into the government code this year as regards to allowable investments. The only changes that are being proposed are just some cleanup items. With that, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mark?
We need to do this as two motions, I would assume, right? I think in the past we've done them as separate motions.
The resolution itself actually takes care of the whole thing. It adopts the policy and delegates it to
Move
the
for
function to the
approval
treasurer.
of the resolution as presented.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Attorney's reports. Consider adopting ordinance number 127 prohibiting interference with district easements, sewer lines, and, what is that?
Ordinances.
And adopting sewer easement maintenance cooperation standards.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance actually grows out of a recent case and experience. We had a sanitary district that had an easement out in the Riverside area, and somebody built a fence right over it. And what we realized, and this happened before the recent case came out, we realized that it was difficult and arduous to go through either the administrative process or the court process to get them to remove it. And coincidentally, the Court of Appeal handed down a case that says that we can adopt an ordinance like this that gives us a much more expedited procedure for getting rid of encumbrances over our easements. So what we're asking the board to do is adopt an ordinance that basically says that when we have a sewer easement, which are in the public record, in the maps, the person has to keep the easement clear, can't obstruct it, can't build a fence or something over it that prevents us from doing repairs. In the case that somebody does have an obstruction, we would give them notice and an opportunity to be heard. They would get a chance to be heard about their obstruction. And if there was no good cause for them putting the obstruction there, we could have them remove it, or we could remove it ourselves and charge the cost to them. The ordinance provides a much quicker procedure than going to court and asking a judge to have something removed, which is actually, it can be important at times that we have to do rapid sewer repairs, and this ordinance that we're asking you to adopt basically tracks a recent case that gives us this authority.
Sounds good.
Mr. President, I had the opportunity to review the ordinance, and with all my experience and what happens with easements and improvements, I went over it with a fine-tooth comb, and all the important provisions are included, particularly that if we have to remove something, that it's completely at the property owner's cost to have to replace it. So if we accidentally damage whatever they put in it in our way, that's their responsibility. So we will not be saddled with high costs for accessing our sewer lines.
Great.
Does this ordinance give us any, the guy Corondo over on?
I was thinking the same thing.
Does this give us any more
Yes.
heat against him?
Yes, because
The guy that wouldn't let us go in and clean the backyard.
right, because he has improvements over the sewer. So,
Okay.
like his gate and stuff.
Because I think,
So-
didn't he argue that there was nothing in our code that allowed
Exactly.
us to come in? So this would allow us.
Exactly.
Is he the only one that falls into that category?
No,
Is there other
there's
ones?
quite a few people who have improvements
Okay.
over our, we were fortunate when we put in the President Force Main, because there was all kinds of stuff in our easement, but we drilled under everything, so we didn't even have to have it removed.
Okay.
I'll move for adoption of ordinance 127.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Mr. President.
Oh, sorry.
President Ferriman, I think it's a good ordinance, and I don't mean to be flip about this, but one provision that I found curious is the ultimate penalty, it says here, is termination of service. And I can understand Mesa Water could come out and turn off the valve and perhaps lock it some way. You could have the trash truck not come out and pick up trash, but I could not visualize how you terminate sewer service. And I am curious, just operationally, how does that happen? There isn't a valve.
We can go in with the no-dig method and put a little liner over their lateral connection. so their wastewater would not make it into our pipe. So without digging, we can terminate their service.
Is that kind of like what we did on the way to the golf course? Did we, remember
Yes.
we plugged that on the way to the golf course on?
That's exactly the kind of thing I'm referring to. But we just put a little short piece.
We put a short piece, yeah, exactly.
Put a short piece, no more access.
Colin, you were going to say something, too.
That's actually a really good method. I haven't heard that yet. What we do out in Riverside is they put a big X in the street in front of the person's house when they haven't paid their sewer fees. And all of a sudden, a person comes home and sees a giant X and a tractor parked out there, and next thing you know, they're running down to the district with a check. If they don't, we actually dig the street up. Yeah.
That's pretty.
They put concrete in the sewer in the past.
And if we have to do it, and then they decide to pay up and straighten their situation, we can robotically cut it out.
Wow.
So no dig.
Oh, no.
We'll probably never come to that, but potentially.
Oh.
I guess.
I hope we never have to do it, Rob.
Right.
We have a motion and a second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Local meetings, I'd just like to say, yesterday or last night, at Orange County Sanitation District, they threw a kind of like almost a party for me being on the board for 30 years, which that doesn't have a real good ring to it, but it was really, and for the staff and everybody who showed up, thank you very much. I certainly didn't expect that, but there must have been 6 prior general managers there, and I mean, you know, it was really humbling.
You can't keep a boss. You got to keep getting rid of them over these 3 years. Congratulations.
Yeah, but it was fun, and
It was the presentation
I don't know if I'll
was
have another one, huh?
The presentation was like half hour to 45 minutes. It was just
Really?
long. It was great.
It was exceptional.
And I'm sure
That's a great
people
night.
really weren't enjoying that part.
Yeah, they were, because everybody had a little different thing to say, you know? And
Yeah. Yeah,
Mr.
so-
Rubin had a great job, too.
I'm pretty lucky. I could have gotten really thrown under the bus. I mean, some of those guys
Well,
had
he
the
was going,
goods
he
on
was
me.
going to, and I said, cross this out.
Man, you took my page away.
So it wasn't
Anyway.
a roast.
Yeah, it was a good deal.
Congratulations again.
That's
Thank
nice.
you.
Good feeling.
So, okay, who's next?
I am. Okay, I left, before this meeting, Jim and I went to the SARFA meeting at Orange County Water District. Okay, and one of the things we did is we approved the slate of officers for next year. Jim's going to be president again. And the same, I think it's Barbara Delicia she's going to be the vice chairman.
Really?
And then here's the committee, executive committee, Stacy Berry, Mayor of Cypress, Stephen Fessel, Councilman from City of Anaheim, Kathy Green, Director, Orange County Water, Patrick Harper, Councilmember of Fountain Valley, myself, and James Tyler, he's the manager of the OC Public Works. So we did the slate, approved that. At this meeting, we always approve the budget for this next year. The budget's been approved with 22 agencies instead of 21, and it's the same, it's $1,300, and I think that once it's been approved, we'll be probably getting the bill for that training. And then we had a conversation from Washington, D.C. with Jim McConnell, and the main focus was the Westminster Watershed Study. It's a draft is due in September of this year. And then once the chief of the Corps looks at the staff, he has until January to submit his report. The agreement is really close to agreement, is being agreed with the county and the chief of the Corps. It's like 99% approved. The county wants to have a 100-year flood protection, which costs $1.3 billion. The Corps wants to spend only like $823 million. And the ratio, they have, the Corps and the county have to have a certain ratio of benefit to, before they approve it, and they've met that ratio at 2.2 to 1 ratio, which is good for the county. So I think this project is going to be completed once we get the funding. The funding is based on the WRDA bill. The WRDA bill is a bill that they approve once a year, and the Corps has to present it to Congress to look at this part of it. And if they don't get it in by January, even though the WRDA bill has not been approved by the Congress, they can still submit it, and it could get approved by the 2019 voting. If it's not, then it'll go on the 2020 voting. So it looks like this project might be completely finished by 2023 with the raising of the spillway. So, and the purchase, they're going to be purchasing all of the land by that time, probably by 2021, purchase all the land behind the Prado Dam. So I thought that was pretty significant. And then I think that's it. Basically, that was it. Then I left, and there was only one other speaker. Yeah, that was just somebody from the county.
Yeah, we, Barbara and myself and the general manager we're going to meet with, I can't remember his name.
Harley Ruda.
Harley Ruda. Monday at his office to discuss the Westminster site or whatever it is.
Westminster watershed. Now, Mike, remember we had a discussion about, does anybody in Costa Mesa pay for flood insurance?
Oh, yeah.
Do they?
Yeah.
Because they don't list that as an expense for the city of Costa Mesa.
They do on the Mesa Verde side.
I know, but I'm just saying, they don't list it when they.
Most of Costa Mesa is in what's called a non-emergency flood zone. So anybody can buy flood insurance.
Yeah, okay.
But lenders will require certain areas. But right now, Costa Mesa doesn't have any designated special emergency areas. So
I used to have to buy it.
Yeah, we have to too. We used to have to.
Yeah.
And actually, once they concreted the Santa Ana River, most of the flood zonings all changed. You know, you'd think down below in the bird streets that would be a special hazard area. It's not.
Not with that channel now that's going down there.
Kind of bums me out that they don't make it mandatory because
that's why I was thinking of you. Now the spillway is going to be raised from, once it's all finished and the project is done, it's going to be raised from 20 feet to 56.3 feet. And that's going to cost $70 million. So that's the last thing that's going to go. And I think it could be completed by 2020. We've been in this project, probably on this committee for like 20 years, haven't we, Jim? Something like that or longer. But it's the same night as tonight's meeting. And usually I have to leave before it's over, but.
pretty soon you're going to have to.
Yeah, maybe. That's my report.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Actually, I went to CSDA that came down here, and we had a strategic plan, which I have a book on if anybody's interested in seeing it. It's really good. We had a whole discussion on it. It was Tuesday, Wednesday, and today. But I opt out today to go to ISDOC so that I could hear the candidates, and they had speakers from actually going for the LAFCO one, two people only. That was well, actually there was another one. The Vector Control had one.
It's for the alternate seats.
Yeah, she was an alternate seat.
It was Celia.
Celia, yeah, I have her.
Well,
I have all this if you want.
LAFCO, you mean?
Pardon?
For the
Yeah, that's
I know,
the
but
alternate
if
for LAFCO.
If Jim
But
Fissler
then
loses,
Fissler-
he stays as the alternate, is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for now, yeah. And then, what's her name? What's her name?
Margie Rice.
Yeah, Margie Rice was the other one that was actually an alternate seat too. And so it was between Celia and,
So did you vote on that?
no,
You're just,
no.
they're just throwing
Yeah,
names
we're,
out there.
we're all, every agency's going to vote, so they'll all be represented.
What-
And then they had CSDA people that were running for CSDA seats. And Cheryl Brothers was there, and so was Carolyn from LAFCO, and just to listen. And so they had, it was interesting. I was kind of disappointed because I opted out of CSDA one to think that there was going to be so many people there. And to me, there weren't that many people. Bob came, and Jim and I representing. And other than that, it was.
I would love to have been there, but sitting at the Sacramento Airport for 3 hours.
So this was their quarterly meeting of
Is that a lunch meeting?
lunch meeting, yeah.
I have a question about LAFCO. When is the ballot coming for that position? Is that coming soon?
Not till,
Next month.
yeah.
In July.
I think they're due by the
August.
19th or 20th of July or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, is it later?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not
And
going to
they
be attending
announced-
that meeting.
They
I'm gonna be
announced
gone.
if you want to have anybody that you're, like, for manager of the year or for employee of the year or anything like that, it's due by July 27th. So we're almost done, aren't we, Nalani? We're almost done with our appointment for manager of the year? Yeah, okay, because we need it in July. Yeah,
Make
so.
sure you put Chinese pictures of that.
We're doing a good job. And then aside from that, I didn't have to go out to Sacramento for anything. I had a webinar recently, and I came here to do the webinar, and it was on legislation. And that was about it. Okay?
Okay. Bob, did you have something?
No.
Okay.
I had an additional meeting, a couple meetings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is for Gina. I'd asked Gina to, ask about those murals, but I went to the meeting and they kind of didn't want me to be involved with that for some reason. I presented them with the cards you gave me. I gave it to Mariella Goddard, and she took those for the Historical Society. But they kind of didn't want me to get involved with the murals, so I said, okay. And then I went to the Planning Commission, and there's only a couple things on the agenda. It was about the installing small cell facilities on top of by the Edison Company. Do we have a cell placement here, Scott? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that was the only thing on the agenda, so they stopped the meeting because the city council says we need more discussion about it. So the meeting lasted like 15 minutes. So they went back to the city council. I don't know what happened at the city council meeting, because the city could have bought the rights to that, and they gave it up to the Edison Company. And the Edison Company's going to get all this revenue from all these cell towers that they're going to be putting in. The city's not going to get it, so I don't know what the city did at the last meeting.
Are they attaching the Edison
They're
poles and things?
Yes, they're attaching the poles. One of them is by Paul Arena School. And
So
some of the
instead
people
of
were.
putting them on properties, they're gonna put them on the
They're gonna-
Edison.
Yes, they're going to put them on the poles.
We could make a little bit of cash for the district by putting one here. But if they're not gonna allow it,
We did it Orange County Sand District. They paid us to have.
See, the city could be getting this revenue instead of the Edison Company. So that's when it went back to the city for more discussion, so I'm not sure what happened.
well, they'll go to individual property owners, like, there's one on my complex where my office is, and the landlord gets,
Well, the way I saw it is they're going to be putting them on street lights, street poles.
oh, that's what I was asking.
That's what I mean, and then there was a couple protesters there because it was right next to the school, and they thought this is called an environmental problem for the children.
Well, Edison's gotta pay for wildfires, so I guess they need the revenue.
So I'm not sure what the council did. That's all I had, Jim.
That's it? Okay, any old business? New business? Oral communications and director comments? Anybody have anything for the good of the cause?
Nope.
Okay. I guess we're going to adjourn this meeting right now.
No, you
We have a
don't.
closed session.
We have a closed session.
Oh, sorry. You guys are more awake than I thought you were. Yeah, let's
He's
go,
talking about
let's
the
move
other
the
board
closed
members, not you
session.
guys.
Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2, subdivision D of Government Code section 54956, as specified in this subdivision exists, claim of Stephen Hodges, received June 3rd, 2019, against the Costa Mesa Sanitary District, a copy of which to be made available to the public. So now, right, we're going to go into closed session. Anybody who needs to stay, stay. If you don't, better get going.
Do we have any comment?
I'd like to reconvene this meeting to open session, and there's no reportable action taken. Meeting's adjourned.
Okay, guys.